money. What I'm going to do is refrain from talking specifically about money and try to broaden it and talk about the value of stewardship. And I just wanted to start by sharing a story, because one of the things I hear a lot is that, and this is just normal I think in our culture, but that's why we are always saying we're called to be countercultural. We're called to approach things differently. And when I first started out as a Christian, it was back in 1992. I was 21 years old, and Diane and I were dating at the time. We got married in 1994, and so when we got married together, we started to have to think about obviously combining finances. But prior to that, they talk about there's a different, we're all in a different place financially. So one, we could be in crisis mode. Two, most people fit into this next one, that we're living paycheck to paycheck. Three, we're doing well, like we're good. But then fourthly is that we've become godly stewards. That we truly are doing it the way that the Bible talks about us doing it. So when I first started this, I was probably in the category between paycheck to paycheck and doing a decent job. And what I mean by that is I carried a little bit of debt on my credit card, probably a couple $1,000s. And we weren't giving prior to becoming Christians. The concept of giving 10% was not in my radar. So after becoming a Christian, to start to give away 10% of our income to the church was something that we did do right off the bat. But at the end of each month, when we had credit card debt, we weren't paying it off completely. So we were, getting that interest put on it. But we were doing okay, Once we actually took a class on it was called the Good Sense Financial Workshop, and it truly changed our lives because it changed our approach to finances. And I'm going to share a story that it might not make sense to you. I'm going to share a story about when I was in Haiti, because this all goes together in me, because there's a shift that takes place. So prior to becoming a Christian, I had one worldview. I had a mindset about finances. Then I became a Christian, and I was learning. It just doesn't happen. I started to learn what the scriptures said about this new worldview. But then it's a living out, right? As you go through life, sometimes it's a lot easier and sometimes a lot harder, For some of us to give 10% of our income away is like, oh my God, that's a real big struggle. And I get it. So there's no judgment here at all today. My only thing I would say about that, if I'm giving 1%, how can I get to 2%? If I'm at 4%, how can I get to 5%? Because all that shows is a reflection of my heart's desire. Some people might not be in a place to give like in that way. It's like give $1, because you're forming a habit and you're giving God something to work with. So what happened was Diane and I started to put a plan together, and we started to climb out of the debt, pay off all the credit cards, and then start applying the principles. And I'm not saying this, hopefully you know me well enough not to brag at all. I'm just trying to say, like, when I hear the different stories around the culture, there's so much stress, and there's so much anxiety and worry and fighting about finances. And so, of course, my heart's desire is for everyone here and those that are listening to be able to make a change and start going in a new direction so that you can have the blessings that come alongside this. Because God says that as we're faithful with little, He'll continue to give us a little more to be responsible with. And anyone that I've ever talked to that has done it according to the scriptures, it's the same story. There's financial freedom, there's peace, and that doesn't mean that you're going to have everything work great. It just means in the midst of it, you've learned to figure it out. Let me tell you about the story. When I went to Haiti, it was a life-changing experience because we went there to do good, right? So I'm an American, I'm coming into a Haitian culture that I don't know at all. And we're to, do a lot of serving type of things, spend time with some of the people there. And one time we were out in a village, it was a remote village, and I think we would do like some kind of dramatic thing to kind of entertain, but also like a God's message to kind of put forth. And as we were doing it, it's very, very hot in Haiti. It's like 110 degrees. And this older gentleman that had come out to kind of be a part of it, he ended up passing out. And And I just remember, like, this desire to help. Like, this is why you have me here, God. And so I picked up the man, and I have no idea what to do next. You know, it's like I'm not a, oh my gosh, my time's up already. Ian, we're going to have to hustle. All right.
Next week?
No, we'll see how we do. Yeah.
I can't promise 10 minutes.
Yeah, I know. We'll see.
Okay.
So as I'm carrying this man, probably, I don't know, I'm just guessing a couple hundred yards to his hut, and that in itself to his home. It's like me walking into my living room, and that was it. So as I'm walking, I'm thinking, what can I do for this man? It didn't matter how wealthy I was. It didn't matter how smart I was. It didn't matter how strong I was. It didn't matter anything about any of my abilities, any of my gifts, nothing. The need was so great in Haiti that I felt like there was nothing I could do to help. And that feeling of helplessness is a terrible feeling. And all I could do was bring this man and lay him down on a sand dirt floor on a little bit of a blanket and then say a prayer. That's it. That was early in the trip. So as the days unfolded, I've said this before, it's different reading your Bible in Haiti than it is here. But the same scripture, the same truths apply. And I can't tell you if it was 100% if this verse was while I was down there or not, but I know that it was in the same time frame. And it was a verse from Deuteronomy 8, and it says that God gives us the ability to produce wealth. Because up until that point, I thought it was all about me. We hear this a lot, right? In America, if you work hard enough, you can achieve anything, right? The American dream. If you put in the time, if you just work hard enough. And around the world, that's not necessarily true. When I was in Haiti, they were working 16-hour days in 110 degrees of weather. I'm watching these frail men push these wheelbarrows up and down hills. I'd be done in 2 hours. I'm not kidding. I would be done in 2 hours. And they do this every single day. And somehow we have the arrogance to think, if you just worked hard enough. They make $6 a week on average. And they could put us to shame with their work ethic. So that humbled me to say, well, if it's not Sean putting forth all the effort, and I'm an effort person, meaning I think we should put in the effort and we should work hard. Don't leave church because Sean just be lazy and God will bless you. No. There's plenty of scripture to talk about working hard. And I do think that there's the principle of sowing and reaping. So usually, when you put in is what you get out, usually. But let's humble ourselves, because this value of stewardship is really about how much we know and trust God. That's what it comes down to. Because the more I trust Him, the more I recognize that it's not really about me at all. There's a principle about stewardship where it says that God owns everything. And a lot of people cringe at that. I want to read to you a verse from Psalm 24. Well, I skipped a little bit. It says, "The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. For He founded it on the seas and established it on the waters." There's a couple of life verses that I absolutely love. And one's from, I'm not going to read them to you, but one's from Galatians and one's from 2 Corinthians. But it's the concept of this. I no longer live to please myself, but now I live to please God. Because I recognize that Jesus died for me. I recognize that He went to the cross so that I could be forgiven. I recognize that He is my creator. I recognize that He's my provider. I recognize that I can put all my hope and trust in Him. But it comes down to a decision. Will I follow His ways? Because this is what it does when we talk about stewardship. Is it my way or God's way? And this is why I say it's about knowing and trusting. It's about humbling ourselves. And I want us to think about the pull of the culture. Because scriptures are challenging us to do it one way. The culture is pulling us to do it a very different way. Can you put up the slide where it has the two cultures, Will? The cultural mindset on money or stewardship is this. We take, we go out, we do our thing, we buy all the groceries, we're doing all the things that help us to live this life. And that could consume 95% of your income, maybe. You party a lot, right? Then you have debt. Because that lifestyle, sometimes we go overboard and we start to incur debt. And then if we start with those two things, some of us, not many by the way, if the statistics are true, not many people get to savings. I just heard a statistic, 78% of all people have less than $10,000 for retirement. Wow. That's what happens if we don't do this now. And then, if we have a little bit left at the end of the month, we'll give that back to God. So this is the cultural thing. And most people I talk to, it hardly ever gets to these two. What do you notice is different that's not on this side? I want you to hear that. What causes you the most pain and stress and arguing? The average person in here is in $10,000 of debt as a family unit. And then we ask ourselves why we're in fights all the time about it. We ask ourselves when Christmas is looming, and oh my gosh, how am I going to make it? Why do we want to live in such a way that we are bringing on that upon ourselves? And again, we all make different amounts of money, but my point is, if we learn to have a lifestyle that matches where we're at, the amount of money shouldn't really matter. But we buy into a lot of the lies in our culture. What are some of the cultural pulls on us? What are we hearing all the time from culture? What is it?
You deserve it.
Yes, you do. We deserve it. What else?
Just charge it.
Just charge it. As if the monthly thing ain't coming in the mail.
You need it now.
Then we go paperless just so we don't see it. And then we pay the minimum so that we're paying for 20 years on a thing that happened that way.
That you need it now.
I need it now. I call that instant gratification.
Buy now, pay next year.
Buy now, pay next year.
Everybody else
And then
has
the
it.
year after and the year after and the year after. They don't tell you that.
Everybody else has it.
So why not me?
We don't use real money. It's all charged.
That's true. 17%. If you use a credit card instead of cash, you spend 17% more. Just a stat. Now they do it in, what's the thing now? You just use your phone, right? Oof, I can't wait till the stats come out on that one. This is what the culture is doing to us. And the value of stewardship, all I want us to wrestle with this morning is a perspective. When you wrestle with this, because God left us in charge. That's His design. It started back in the garden. And
Poor Ian. Poor Ian.
Next week.
is this Ian calling? Hey,
That's next week.
poor Ian. Sympathy. I should have gone second. All right. Let me read to you. Let's see here. I read to you Psalm 24. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 4. Because the first one, God owns everything, is about God or me. This one is now what? 1 Corinthians 4 says, now it is required that those who have been given a trust must prove faithful. So this idea, the story of the talents, is a story where a man was given, the owner gave to its servants, one was given 10 talents, one was given 5, one was given 2, and one took it and doubled it. The next one took it and doubled it. The third one took it and buried it. And God is saying to us, this is what it's like. I've given you whatever you have, I've given it to you. Now you're my trustee, you're my steward. How are you going to handle it? And I was thinking like of a silly example, but I was like, if I gave you my car, and this is not me at all, but if I asked you to wash it weekly, I haven't washed my car ever, but if I gave you my car and it was important to me, and I said, look, in order for you to manage it, I want you to wash it and keep it clean and do it every single week. That's the only thing I ask you to do. So as the weeks go unfold, you go, I don't really believe in that. I don't believe in washing the car. It's not that big of a deal. So thus, I'm not going to do it. And then just keep putting in that line of thinking in all these other ways that we do. When God talks to us about living His way, God's mindset of what He asks us to do, it's called the 10-10-80 principle. And we just talked about give 10%, save 10%, live off the rest. If we do that, I believe that we'll have more financial freedom and experience the blessings of that. But it comes down to saying, will I do it His way or my way? And then lastly, in Philippians 4, it says, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. That's what I'm trying to say. It doesn't mean life is going to go our way. Today, when we go to the homeless, to go spend some time at the Madison Street Church, the last time I went I went to Crossroads, and there was a man there that I spent some time with, and I think he was in his 60s. He was a college educated. I think he was in upper management in his job, but he had a drug problem, and he ended up getting incarcerated. And because of the drugs, he ended up alienating himself from his wife, so they ended up getting divorced. He ended up going to prison, and when he got out, he had nowhere to go, and he ended up on the streets. I said to myself, if that can happen to him, it can certainly happen to me. The idea is for us to handle the monies and the resources that God has given to us to make a difference in other people's lives. There's certain things that He wants us to understand about finances. He wants us to manage our finances wisely. He says it's better to give than to receive. He says to be a cheerful giver. He encourages us to be a wise saver. And if we do this, if we can get our perspective to be changed, then I believe that you'll realize the fullness of His blessings.